Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Known Lives Digital Media Sync. It's good to see you this morning, or to be seen. How did everybody do in the wind last night? That was pretty crazy. So today we are going to talk about preparing for the Great Give. So I know that there are a lot of nonprofits out there, a lot of people who are on boards, and we're hopefully gearing up to do the Great Give campaign in May, the beginning of May. And I wanted to put a couple of links up from the Community Foundation as well. The Community Foundation works with GiveGab to do some workshops to help nonprofits with their Great Give campaign. So before I do that, I just wanted to provide a little bit of information about where I am running Digital Media Sync out of. So I am at Known Co-working, and Known Co-working is at 139 Orange Street in New Haven, the ninth square of New Haven. We're on the 4th floor. We are open for business. You can come in and grab up a dedicated desk. There's offices, meeting rooms, Zoom booths. So if you go to nhvknown.com, you'll be able to find information about how to rent some space. There are also other programs here at Known Co-working in the Known Live live streams. So besides Digital Media Sync, which is me, there is Connection Corner, and Connection Corner is hosted by Barb Nangle. And we actually have a Connection Corner coming up on Thursday, the 4th at 2 p.m. Barb is going to be talking to Laughlin Arts, the executive director of 2030 or Bust, and it's 2030orbust.org, a global initiative dedicated to generating the awareness, action, and results to have us be on track by 2030 for a sustainable future. They are out to bust the current mindset regarding climate change, and with that, to unleash the thinking and action that will bridge the 2030 emissions gap. So join us then. You can find that on both the Known Co-working Facebook page and the Known Co-working YouTube channel as well. The other live stream is Pivot Talk, and Pivot Talk is for when organizations need to evolve. So whether it be a pandemic or any other kind of large events, or if there's stagnation in the industry or in the organization. The next Pivot Talk is actually going to be Monday, March 8th, and the guest will be Carolyn Tanby Smith, who is co-director of CoLab, and she'll join us to discuss the trends in entrepreneurship in New Haven, key challenges that entrepreneurs should expect, and the record number of new businesses in 2020 and how that could be good, expanding activity, or it could be bad, more competition. So how do you navigate that? Okay, so with that, I am going to actually share my screen and just go over a brief kind of presentation. So just a little background about the work that I've done with nonprofits. I've actually worked with the Community Foundation of Greater New Haven for a few years back, where I would run workshops to help support those who were either doing the Great Give or their own fundraising days. So we put together a workbook that's kind of like a checklist of the things that you need. And I think this is not just for fundraising. If you take a look at some of these kind of strategies, we're looking at what you can do not only for a nonprofit, but if you're thinking about any campaign where you're trying to get the word out. but I'm going to put that up. All right, so it says online campaign day planning. So one of the first things that you want to do, the things that are usually covered or that you should think about, is your core message preparation. And again, this is something that I'm always saying, and a lot of marketers and branding people are saying, or just to make sure that you have a good grip on what your core message is. Materials development, making sure that you have everything prepared, whether it be photos and video, all your copy, anything that's going to help you deliver that message and what that's going to look like. A timeline preparation. This is something that we don't usually think of, or we start way, way too late. So when you're thinking about a timeline, since it's the first week of March and we're thinking about the Great Give, we should already be planning for the Great Give. We should already be well into planning for the Great Give. A succinct ask for help. This is the same thing as, what do you want people to do, right? So when you're talking about in business, what's the action that you want them to take? Team recruitment, making sure that you have people in place. So that means your staff, your board, people who are volunteers, fans of the organization. So make sure that you have that information available for you, for the organization before you start. So you can reach out and have people help deliver the message, do peer-to-peer fundraising. And then obviously the big thing is to make sure that you have the thank you and keep in touch. Okay, so what do you already have? So what's the one thing that you want to accomplish during your online campaign day? So whether that's the Great Give or later in the year when it's Giving Tuesday, or if you're doing an annual appeal. And I know a lot of people do their annual appeals at different times during their fiscal year. So what's the one thing that you want to accomplish? And we'll talk about that in a little bit. What do you have available? What's on hand as far as what your resources are? So do you have your database, your email database prepared? Do you have your social media platforms in order? Do you have a sign off on any videos or photos of participants or constituents that are part of your organization? So making sure that if you're going to be using, for example, a photo with people or volunteers, whomever in those photos, did you make sure that they have signed off on a model sign-off sheet? And the model sign-off sheet is definitely something that you can get online. It's very easy. It's basically a template form. Who are your core communicators? So in this case, in the case of nonprofits, you're thinking about your executive director, staff, again, volunteers, board members. Who are the people who are going to be delivering those messages? So make sure that you have a list of them, that you give them the tools that they need in order to communicate for you, your message based on your brand, your mission, and then make sure that you follow up and you give them clear instructions as far as what's expected, and give them some agency as well. What are the stories that they want to tell? If somebody is volunteering or if somebody has been involved with an organization, make sure that they have that they're able to talk about their whys. And then what online tools are you actually comfortable with? So I know that oftentimes when there's small organizations, it can be somewhat of a struggle if you are trying to communicate on online platforms that you're not really used to, but you know that your audience is there. So that's why you need the people above, right? The core communicators, because it may be that if you are not very comfortable on Twitter or Instagram, or you're not sure how to make a TikTok video, you want to make sure that there's somebody in your core communicator group that can do those things, that can communicate that message. So see how everything kind of like feeds into each other, and you're starting to develop a plan just out of the fact that you're answering these questions. And speaking of questions, if anybody has any questions, good morning, Randy. If anybody has any questions, just go ahead and put them in the comment section, or if anybody has anything that they want to say about communicating in organizations, go ahead and put that in the comment section, and I'll be taking a look at that area as well. All right, so the next slide. So when we're talking about, I feel like I skipped a slide. Nope, I did not. Cool. Okay, so when we were talking about core message, oftentimes your core message should be kind of like developed around your mission, right? So that's pretty easy. But sometimes, your message, especially in the Great Give, you're talking about something that's very specific within the organization that you want to fundraise to. So an example may be, you are an organization that deals with puppies and kittens. Okay, so you're an animal shelter, and you're not doing general fundraising. You want to do something very specific, like add on another component or another building to the shelter. So you want to talk about that. So there's a formula that I use when I'm doing my workshops, and it starts out really simple. Build a solution case that resonates with the given audience. Okay, so I often call this what is that game that you play, Mad Libs, right? So it's like having a little Mad Lib where you're filling in the blanks. Hello, good morning. Okay, so the content we produce helps, and this wasn't based on a nonprofit organization. This was based on an actual company, but I love the way that that it was laid out, right? So the content we produce helps our company accomplish, and then it's goal and goal. So it may be one goal, and it may be a couple of goals, by providing adjective and adjective content that makes audience description, right? We're always talking about target audience or audience profiles. What does that look like? So we want the audience to feel a certain emotion or another certain emotion so that they can perform a task, right? So volunteer or donate or fundraise, do peer-to-peer fundraising. So what is it that you want them to do? So you have your goal first, that's very clearly defined. You're describing what that goal is and why you want that goal to be reached. And then you want the audience, the person, people, to feel a certain way so that they can actually do what you are asking them to do. So that's just a very, very simple method. All right. Okay, I'm doing that. So the next thing to do is to make sure that you prepare a timeline. I cannot stress enough how important it is to take this step so that you're not always scrambling over everything. Yes, granted, there will be scrambling. And I know, again, we have a lot of small organizations. There were small organizations that I worked with that basically were saying, I just do not have the staff or the help or the type of organization where I can dedicate a lot of my resources to, we have to run our organization, right? Isn't that always the way? So no matter what the size of your organization, and it's easy to be overwhelmed and lose track of planning. So here I was trying to give a very easy to reach kind of timeline goal I like to have 60 to 90 days of planning, and I also like to make sure that the next time, so when I'm working with an organization that doesn't have a timeline and a plan, I always like to say, next time, let's start at the very beginning and build this particular, whatever the fundraising is. So whether it's the Great Give or whether it's Giving Tuesday or whether it's an annual appeal, make sure that you build that time in well ahead of time in the larger plan. So here I was just saying to provide for 30 days, but I'd really rather have people would have like a 90-day kind of like, hey, let's check in and start building out an outline of what we want to do. 60 days, really think about what that core goal is going to be, and then move from there. I also added, so this is 30 days before the launch, but I also add 30 days after the event is over. And the reason being, not only is there, okay, great, thanks for giving to this particular giving event, but you want to, again, use this time to start building relationships. And the way to do that is to make sure that you build communications that are not only thank you, but also reporting on what is going on. And also, again, go back to that little Mad Lib. What do you want people to feel? You want people to feel connected to the organization so that they will give again. They will talk positively about the organization again. And they will get their friends to give and to volunteer and to talk positively about the organization as well. So this way, you have continual communication. So when you're talking about preparing this timeline and calendarizing and schedule, and again, this may seem like, for many of us, may seem like, well, of course, right? This is something we would always do. But just like in businesses and nonprofits, people can get caught up in the actual work. All right. So use a shareable project management tool. And when I did this many years ago. I think it was like 2015 to 2017 was when I was doing a workshop, a 2-hour workshop once a month. So some of the project management tools there's definitely more that are available. So Google Drive, and using Google Calendar, Airtable. Again, I'm always bringing up Airtable, but it is, such a robust tool. Trello was another one. It was interesting because somebody was asking me, well, what should I use? And don't say Trello, because I've used Trello and I don't like it. Wunderlist is more of like a checklist type of tool. There's also ClickUp. I found that ClickUp is also, for as far as project management, very, very easy to use. It's simple yet robust. So just make sure that you have, again, we're talking about resources, tools and platforms, time, right? So we're going through each of these things and kind of building out what all of them are going to look like. All right. Develop awe-inspiring materials. So specifically during specified times, calendarized fundraising where there's a lot of organization vying for the same pots of money, right? How are you going to be telling your stories and build out your digital library based on the fact that you really want to cut through a lot of clutter? So granted, again, going back to, you should have your core base of people that really believe in the mission of your organization. So what are 5 to 7 things that you can convey in 140 characters or less? And this was something, if you might notice, that I had used to deliver on Twitter, right? And that is basically the easiest way to think about how concise you want to be when you're delivering your message, okay? So when you're thinking about what your core message is, you want to start really, really small. 5 to 7 things you can do you can talk about very concisely. And this is something, the same thing as kind of like an elevator pitch, right? What can you say about you or yourself, your organization in 10 seconds or 30 seconds? And then expand it out to a minute. So this is what we're doing. We're starting small, and then we're going to expand out. What photos do you have readily available that convey your central ask message, right? What are the things when you look at the photo, it's like, oh, that's what they do, right? If it's a community garden or something like that, how do you show that? If it's something that has to do with providing after school or during school programming for children, literacy, just, go down the list, whatever it is. What are the photos that convey what you are trying to, as far as what the central ask message? And then again, video that you have readily available. And a video could be anything from interview style, testimonial style, action style, what's actually going on in an organization. It could be a series of photos if you don't have the time or resources to do a video. It could be a series of photos that fade in and out and become a slideshow, and then you kind of overlay text and that sort of thing. And again, now that we have tools that are simple to use, like a Canva or a Buffer, or Hootsuite, or even the Facebook and Instagram and YouTube have very simple editing tools in order to put something together. And then understanding what it is you currently have and things that you need to produce. So this is why we're thinking of the timeline, right? If you're a week away from a great give situation and you still need to produce something, you're really going to be scrambling. All right. Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to take a sip of hot chocolate. All right, that was fun. Okay, recruit your team and delegate. So don't be afraid to delegate small tasks or, again, things that you can't do. So if you're part of a staff that is tasked with putting this together, or oftentimes boards will have development committee or marketing committee or fundraising committee that's specific to this time. Make sure that you recruit the people, advisors, advocates, volunteers. So make sure that you have a list of the team members and also what their jobs are. It'll make things a lot easier. So use platforms that you're comfortable with and give the reins to others that you're not comfortable with. This is not the time to be learning a new platform. And also understand that no one online platform is the platform. This is something that I'm constantly talking about. And many of us have had this discussion, right? When we're asked, well, what platform should I be on? The platform you should be on is ideally all of them, or as many of them that you can find your audience, and in this case, your donors and your fundraisers. I'm going to try a little bit later on to talk somewhat about Facebook and Instagram, more specifically as far as what's available to you as a fundraiser. All right, so what I had given people is this actual workbook. So I left it in here, and I wanted to talk about, first of all, there's goals, right? So what's your financial goal? What's the number that you want to raise? And is it something that's a viable number to reach. What's your donor goal? Oftentimes, people will have goals as far as what their total number of donors are, or total number of new donors, or reaching back out to consistent donors that have not given in a while. So make sure that you have all of these listed out as goals. And this was something that I would actually give to organizations and let them fill this out. So if you want to mentally fill this out, or drop me a note that you want to grab this workbook and physically fill it out. And what are some online milestones? Because not only are you looking for a dollar amount, but you may also be looking for new fans to your Facebook page or your Instagram, so that you can continue conveying your message and communicating and relating to potential donors, potential volunteers, potential advocates. Okay, so remember when we talked about the communication points and what are 3 to 5 main points you would like to communicate? Now it's time to expand that out to at least 20 social media messages specific to the brand and specific to your goal. So this is an exercise that I often do, again, when I was running workshops, where we would take some time to say, okay, did you write down the 3 to 5 points? Let's take a few minutes and talk about what those social media messages are. We're not going to do that now, because when you're live streaming, a few minutes of silence are awkward. Again, in the communications points area, what's the one thing that makes your ask different and compelling? Are there emotional drivers that could create positive and lasting engagement with your audience, right? So, and that's the thing too, right? Not everything has to be problem solution, right? It could just be solution and very positive. Visual context. What tangible pictures, videos, images come to mind that are useful, entertaining, memorable, related to the service that you provide, and shared and passed along amongst friends? And so this is something to consider, how you're packaging your visual content, right? Is it something that can be shared easily? And oftentimes, right, when you make a post, the post is shareable. People can share that. But there's other times where you can do things like provide a specific background so that somebody can utilize it and overlay their photo, so that the background has the message, the general message. That person places a photo of themselves over that, and then continues that message, but in their voice, right? So what does that look like, being able to provide that to your advocates? What social media resources are you currently communicating through, and how is that working out? And what resources have you had difficulty breaking through, right? So if you are communicating through Facebook and you're doing very, very well with that, that's probably somewhere where you can do a lot of your organic messaging and just continue on your way. The way that that works out, you're going to bringing more and more people on board with that. If you're having difficulty breaking through, oftentimes I've told people to maybe take a little bit of their budget and utilize that for doing some advertising. And one of the things that I teach is advertising on $5 a day. So if you're advertising a week out from a Great Give event, doing $5 a day, it's like 25 bucks to advertise to an audience. Oh, that was it. That showed how you could reach me. So I'm going to take this off the screen, and I'm going to go back to me. Here I am. And it's sunny. Can you see that it's sunny? So I don't know if anybody had any questions there. That was just something that was really, really basic about some a very specific giving situation. There are platforms that make it really, really easy for you to give, and one of them is Facebook, and they have obviously Facebook has the Facebook and Instagram I thought it was still on. Great. The Facebook and Instagram platform is all kind of in one in the Facebook business area. So you already have, if you have started your page as a nonprofit, then you're already been given a lot of these tools that you could very easily use, right? So that's definitely one thing that people check. One of the things about utilizing the page as a nonprofit is that they actually ask for documentation. So Facebook will ask for documentation and make sure that you can upload that. And then that way you get your donate button that's like right below the cover image. And you can do fundraising, and people can do peer-to-peer fundraising for you. So actually, what I'm going to do is I am going to close this out, and then we'll talk about that later in the month. So I just wanted to let you know what's going to be going on for the next few weeks at Digital Media Sync. Next week, I will actually, what am I doing next week? Next week, I am going to be talking with Zep Zan. She has a new online platform that we actually tested out a few days ago and yesterday. So this is doing online networking and online product selling. So she's going to be talking about that from the perspective of doing online networking, like fireside chats, product selling, and that sort of thing. So she has this whole campaign that she's working on with that. Randy, are we talking the week after that? Is that what we're going to be doing? If you're still here, pop a note in there. And then the week after that, I'm going to be having another guest on, Rahisha Bivens, and we're going to be talking about how she's been using social media for causes. So we're going to go back to doing nonprofits and causes and doing cause-related communications. Okay, so are we still talking about B corporations? So we'll have everything up on the website in the next couple of days. The 16th, yes. So next week is the 8th, right? No, next week is the 9th, and then after that is the 16th. Yes. Okay, I can do math, so that's super cool. All right. So we'll talk about that offline. I'm actually going to go and do some work right now and get the sun out of my eyes. So everybody stay warm, stay out of the wind. We have one more day of cold apparently, and we will see you next week. Thanks.